Sean Connery was finished with James Bond. After 5 films in the role, which catapulted him to a level of stardom almost unheard of at the time, the exhausted Scottish actor was ready to get off the 007 machine and reclaim his life and whatever privacy he could salvage. Following the release of 1967's You Only Live Twice, producers Harry Saltzman and Albert R. Broccoli began a massive worldwide search for a new actor to play the British secret agent. Although many actors were seen and considered, they ended up going with a total unknown who had never acted before. See related. Becoming Bond trailer tells the story of George Lazenby. That man was George Lazenby. A native of Australia, Lazenby had worked as a car mechanic and an auto salesman both in his homeland and in England, where he eventually fell into a successful career as a male model. Impressing Saltzman with his fashion sense, he had gone to Connery's tailor to get a suit made similar to that of his predecessor, and his physical prowess. He accidentally punched out a stunt coordinator during an audition. Lazenby won the role, despite never having acted a day in his life. He made his debut as Bond in 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, a film that took the series back to its roots and discarded the increasingly outlandish gadgets and plots of the last few Bond films for a tale that was perhaps the most faithful adaptation ever of one of Ian Fleming's original novels. Director Peter Hunt emphasized a grittier, more in-your-face style of action, while also focusing on character development in a way that the Bond films had never done before. In a surprising and ultimately heartbreaking series of events, Bond falls in love with a woman named Tracy, Diana Rigg, and ends up leaving MI6 to wed her, only for her to be murdered just hours into their marriage by vengeful arch-villain Blofeld, Telly Savalas. Even with a new actor and a bleak ending, On Her Majesty's Secret Service did sizable business at the box office, if a bit less than the Connery films, and Lazenby was offered a $1 million contract to star in 6 more movies. Instead, he walked away, doing a little more acting for a few years before venturing into real estate. His one film as Bond, at first a footnote in the history of the series, has since been reappraised as one of the finest in the franchise's 50-plus-year run. And now the story of George Lazenby's rollercoaster ride of a life has been told in a new documentary called Becoming Bond, which premiered this week on Hulu. Writer-director Josh Greenbaum takes the unusual tack of alternating between a face-to-face interview with the now 77-year-old actor and recreating scenes from Lazenby's life, as he describes them, with Josh Lawson playing Lazenby and well-known actors like one-time Bond girl Jane Seymour and Curb Your Enthusiasm star Jeff Garlin in small but key roles. Speaking separately with Greenbaum by phone and Lazenby in person, we were able to piece together how Becoming Bond came out and the light it sheds on Lazenby's quirky rise and fall. A mutual friend of mine and George's essentially introduced us, says Greenbaum. This friend had known George for a long time and he mentioned to me, this guy's got some interesting stories. You, as a filmmaker, I think would be interested to meet with him. I of course knew of George, the little that I feel like I knew of him prior to making the film, and to be honest was a little skeptical going in. I don't know exactly what this guy's story is and really how much of the story that I've read online and the folklore of it all surrounding George Lazenby is true and whatnot. Greenbaum says he was totally hooked within 5 minutes of sitting down to lunch with Lazenby, both in terms of wow, his story's incredible, but probably even more importantly, I was blown away by how gifted a storyteller he was. It took 5 or 6 more lunches to convince the actor himself to commit to the project. He wasn't one of those overeager people saying, "Point the camera at me, I'll tell you my highlight reel of my life," says the director. I think he knew he would tell the warts and all story, and I think was trying to get a sense of if he could trust myself and my producer partners. Lazenby, tall and still physically imposing decades after making his debut as Bond, confirms the multiple lunches, adding, "Eventually I said, okay, let's do it, because I liked their style. I mean, they were capturing a bit of me. I once did a book with a guy, and I've never released it because it's not me. It's, you know, what his version of me is, rather than me. I know that he got all the locations right, and the dates right, but it wasn't me. Greenbaum admits that it took a while to earn Lazenby's trust, but also says that the latter took a leap of faith in agreeing to let Greenbaum stage reenactments of events from his life, often in a jocular or somewhat comedic tone.